Okay, yesterday while speaking about the different tabs of the tool, I didn't mention about this tab, the one next to my flows that is shared with me. So what this tab is used for is when when someone shares a flow with someone else. For example, person A shares with person B. This sharing is done through cloud flows. There is an option called as share in cloud flows. I will show it to you how it is shared at the right time. But for now, assume that person A has shared the flow with person B. Now I am that person B. I will be seeing that shared flow in this section over here because someone else has shared with me. But I won't be able to directly use it. I have to select its option, select that flow and make a copy of it. As soon as I do a save as copy, that flow comes into my flows tab over here. And then I will be able to use that flow. Clear with this option? Okay, fine. Now let's proceed to module 4. Module 4 is the flow building essentials. As the name says, it's essential for building a flow without which you cannot build flows. The topics that we are going to cover in this flow are we are going to see what the different components of an action is, variables and its different data types available in PAD, the types of variables, which is different from a data type of a variable. We'll be performing various arithmetic operation, concatenation operations, setting of blank values, percent values, how to increment a value of a variable and so forth, where to find out the properties of a variable and what all properties are available, conditional statements like if, else, switch statements, etc. Loops like for each loop, loop with condition and so on. And flow control means controlling the navigation of your flow from one place to another. Beginning with the first topic, that is actions. As we have already used this, display message is the first action that we use to build the hello world flow. So the different parts of the action is, first you will see the name of the action in the top section. Then a small description of that action. What exactly does that action do? Displays a message box. When you click the more info link, it will take you to the documentation of Microsoft for this particular action directly. Then the third one, these sections are the parameters or properties, as you can say. They are text boxes, they are drop downs, they are toggle buttons and so on. You need to configure them as per your flow, the flow that you are building. Then the I information icon here, tooltip text that you see, that is for giving you the information about that particular parameter. For example, this I is for this parameter, what it does or what you should configure there. Then the variables produced, we have talked about it. It is the variable that is coming or produced out of this action. So in this case, which button was pressed, the output will be stored in this variable. And then at the bottom, on error button is there. So that is used for error handling. So a majority of the actions have got this on error button to handle errors coming out of that action. I'll explain that in detail when we go to the error handling section. So for now, these are the components or features or parts of an action. We'll move on to variables and their different data types. A variable is a placeholder or a container that is used to store data or manipulate the data within that variable. The different parts of a variable are, it has got a name, what data type it is, whether it's a text, number, and so on, and what is the value of that variable. So here, then in this example, the name is str first name. You can give any name as per the flow you are building. A general naming convention is prefixing it with a type. For example, if it's a string or a text, I can put it as a str prefix in short, in small case. Then in camel case, first name, where F and N are capital. You can follow any naming convention, Pascal convention or Microsoft naming convention. There are multiple types of naming convention. If you simply do a web search, you'll find out. But as best practices, everyone in your team should follow the same convention. Then data type, as I said, text, numeric, so on. We'll be seeing different data types and whatever value it holds. In this example, the variable notation in Power Automate Desktop, we already saw it during the display message, where a variable name is prefixed with a percent symbol and suffixed with a percent symbol. This is the variable notation in Power Automate Desktop. And in this particular example at the top, str first name prefixed and suffixed by percent sign is the variable. Moving on to the types of variables, there are two types of variables, flow variables and input output variables. Let's see where they can be seen on the editor. I'll build a new flow. Perhaps name it as mod 4. Okay, cool. So the area that we are talking about is this. Among the two types of variables, one is input output variables, the other is flow variables. Now, what are flow variables? These are the variables that can be created and used only within the flow designer. That is, they are created while building our flows inside this designer and they cannot be accessed outside. They are created using the set variable action, as we have seen in our example. Let's quickly do one. Set variable, as you drag and drop first name. Now the flow variable of first name is automatically created under the flow variable section because it is coming out from this action. So created using set variable action is one of the ways, or it is generated as output from other actions. We also used a display message. Let's give a sample message. And the variable produced that I'm talking about is the button pressed over here. I expand it so that it will give a small description, the text of the button press. When you run the flow, the display message box will have two buttons. That caption will be captured within the button pressed. Now see, watch the variable window. As soon as I press save, that button pressed variable comes up over here, and that is what is being talked about over here, generated as output from actions, or gets deleted when the action that created it is deleted. That is another point to remember. If I delete this action, because that is the one that created button pressed, as soon as I delete it, that action goes away. So meaning it is created as well as used within the flow designer itself using multiple ways. The demo part is what I just showed, but let's quickly see one thing. I'll undo and bring back the display message and see what the values come up. Yeah, the first name is assigned with value of John and the message box hello. If you can see, I pressed OK on that box. As soon as I pressed OK, it's showing OK here. Until then, it was blank. Now, okay, before going to input output variables, let's see what options do we have for flow variables itself. So when I click this ellipsis button over here, I can see some options. View is simply viewing the value. Then rename, if I want to change the name, or press F2. Find usage. Imagine a flow with multiple actions. It will quickly jump to the place where I have used that variable. Just now let me click that, find usage, and it will tell me it's in the main flow on line number 1 and in this action assigned to variable F name the value John. Let's close this. Mark as sensitive. Let's say I'm using a password in this variable or something like a credit card a number or some personally identifiable information PII. So I'll be marking it as sensitive. As soon as I do that, you can see the mark of this variable changed to this icon over here, just like the incognito window on the browser. And you can see the value of John is not displayed over here. Be noted, this is not to store any sensitive value. It is just to mask it temporarily for, I mean, it cannot be seen by any onlooker unless someone goes and disables this on incognito or marks it as removes the sensitiveness of the variable, then it will be shown over here. Then pin is, let's say you want to debug something on and on again and again, and you want to watch the value of a variable frequently. So if you pin it, it will come at the top. As you can see, I've just pinned it and it has come with this icon at the top. And now it will be easy for me to watch the value of this variable. Imagine you are going to have tons of variables in this pane when you start building multiple flows with multiple lines of actions. And this is a filter icon. If I click on filter right now, both variables are of text type. That's why it's showing me text value. If let's say I had a number over here, I could filter it using numbers only, or show all pinned variables or do not show pinned variables. That is the toggle. Coming to input output variables. On the contrary, input output variables are created within, but they are used inside as well as outside the flow designer, meaning they can be used in cloud flows or from the pad console, that is the main console that we talked about. So it's created from this panel over here using the plus icon. I create one variable. Now there are two names, as you can see. This is one variable name. This is external name. Now what variable name is? This is the name that is referred inside the flow designer. Whereas the external name is the name that will be referred outside of this flow designer externally. I'll be showing you both of them. So just for understanding purpose, let me give this something as int input, meaning internal variable, and let me keep this as it is as new input. The other sections are the data type of the variable you can define. We'll be going through each data types, but in a nutshell, these are those data types. Let's leave it as it is. You can give a default value if you want, that is optional. Description again is optional, but as good practice, it's better to give. Mark as sensitive is the same that I mentioned. If you toggle it, it will be a sensitive variable. Then optional variable is, if you mark it as optional, it's not mandatory to give a value to it. If it's not given, when it is marked as optional, if you don't give any value, it will be marked as blank. Let me hover over the eye icon, and if you can read it, the second sentence that it says is, if a value is not passed in this variable, it will remain blank. Right now I'll remove it and save it. So one input variable is created using this section. Now the same way you can create an output variable. There are a few differences. As you can see, the number of parameters are less, 4 parameters over here, whereas in an input variable there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parameters and 2 toggles. Coming back to the output variable, same concept, the variable name, make it as out, or actually this should be in because it's internal input variable, and this is out means it is an output variable. Data type external, the other one was new input, this is new output. Description and a toggle. So 4 plus 1, 5 parameters. Okay, as you can see, the colors of these two are also different to differentiate them as input and output variables. That was a creation. Why is it used? Why are input output variables used? They are used to allow the passing of data between cloud flows and desktop flows. or between two desktop flows itself. Now we are talking about calling one desktop flow from another desktop flow. Earlier we are talking about calling a desktop flow from a cloud flow. And the third is it's used to pass the data from the main console. When it is run from the main console, you can pass any data. I will be showing you all three options. Okay, this is the first option among the three. That is passing of data between cloud flows and desktop flows. So this is the cloud part. That's why I've shown it in the form of a screenshot. When you build a cloud flow, if you remember, there were 1000 plus connectors. One of the connectors is run a flow built with Power Automate Desktop. When you open this connector, you will be asked to fill up the desktop flow name. Now, in our case, what was the name that I gave? I gave it as mod 4. Correct. Correct. In this drop down, as soon as you pull this drop down, it will show you list of all the desktop flows. Then the run mode, whether it is attended or unattended, we will be talking about what run modes are later. Priority optional. Now we are talking about new input. Now can you visualize the new input that we had given in the input variable as an external name will pop up in your cloud flows by that name. Now you are able to connect the dots. You will be passing a parameter from here that will be calling your desktop flow, filling up the parameter and returning back in the form of an output variable. In other words, let's say there were three input variables over here, name, age and city. Automatically, as soon as you pull your drop down with the correct flow name, it will show here as name, age and city. Three different parameter boxes will show up in your cloud flow because you are calling a desktop flow from a cloud flow using this connector. Clear with this particular option before we move on to the next option? Okay, good. The second was or between two desktop flows. And I'll show you probably the second and third together itself. The third one is or from the main console. Let's see both of these. Now our input variable is in input. Now let's think of an example of using this. I'll rename this to, or probably I'll disable this, and in the display message box we'll be passing this value from externally from outside of a desktop flow, but our internal name is in input. I select that. So what we are going to do is pass the value of this variable from outside the flow designer so that when it comes inside this flow, it will show me the value of whatever I had passed prefixed with hello. Let's save this, because without saving it won't allow me to run it from the main console. Now I'll be closing this and going to the main console. I close this, go to the main console. Mod 4 is our flow name. Now if I run this, it has asked me a parameter, the new input that I said as an external name that we gave in the inputs tab. So that has been asked to me as an input. That means for attended automation, you can run it from the main console also. You can ask inputs to the user. You can ask multiple inputs, name, age, city. Please enter name, age, city, and that's the way how your flow will run based on those inputs. Now, if you remember, we had given hello as the prefix, and the value that we'll be putting here will be shown up in a display message box. Let's say John. Let's click on OK. The flow will now run. Our first action is display message, and the output is hello John. Without even opening the designer, it has taken the value externally from the main console. So that was the third option from the main console. Okay, now between two desktop flows. Now let's see This is pretty straightforward. You might have understood it now itself. Let's where is our hello world? My first flow. Okay, let's open this. Now, which option are we talking about? Between two desktop flows. So from our my first flow, we are now going to call the mod 4 flow that we just built today. We are interacting with two desktop flows. Again, it's the first time. It's going to take some time. But until then, let me tell you some of its usages. Where would you build such a scenario? So you could have a reusable desktop flow that is going to be called from multiple other desktop flows. For example, reading a config file, perhaps some kind of login mechanism. For example, you need to call a login screen where you enter the username password. You need to call that flow again and again. You can build one common desktop flow and call it from other flows. You can use it for error handling and so forth. I hope now you are able to connect the dots and get a gist of it. So my first flow, yeah, good. My first flow, okay, we had built a lot many things. So now we are talking about calling another desktop flow. So let me simply search for desktop over here. So you can see run a desktop flow is a pre-built action. I drag it over here and what it will do is in the drop down it will show me all the list of available flows on my machine using my environment and tenant and ID, whatever is available, whatever I am accessible to. Okay, the one we are talking about is mod 4. I select mod 4. What did it ask me? Automatically it asked me the new input that we had given in the input variables section. This time let's give it a different name. And did you see automatically the output of that output variable that we gave is going to be the output of this desktop flow mod 4. I click on save. Now we don't want to run, we just want to run the first. So I will put a breakpoint over here temporarily and run from here. According to you, what should be the output? Correct? We passed the name Mary this time and hello was inside another flow mod 4. That's why it has appended both and shown as a result. Clear with all the three ways? I just showed you the input, so output variables also can be shown that way. So let me give you an example diagrammatically. So we are not talking about between two. Somebody wanted to say something? Go ahead. Yeah, because we did not pass anything. That's why. So that is exactly what I'm trying to now explain. So we have, let's talk of a situation of uh, a cloud flow and a desktop flow. That is frequently used because we saw two desktop flows. Now this is our cloud flow. This is our desktop flow. Here we have given one input variable and we have created one output variable. Now that connector which calls a desktop flow. Right, in the cloud flow we have a connector to call a desktop flow. Now this will be calling our desktop flow and returning back the control to the calling cloud flow. Okay, so because we have created an input variable over here, as soon as you pull that drop down where it shows the list of flows, it will give a list of input variable at first, meaning that input variable of the desktop flow will be shown in the cloud flow to be populated. So cloud flow will call the desktop flow, capture the value inside your desktop flow. Let's say you have, for a simplicity of example, you have performed addition of two numbers and passing it as an output that will go back to the Cloudflow, and here you will get that value of output var. So if you did an addition of two numbers, let's say 10 plus 20, that 30 will be passed back to the Cloudflow. Inside the Cloudflow, you will be able to make use of that value 30 for your own set of operations, whatever you want to do here in Cloudflow. Is it clear? Okay. Mayura, clear about output variables? We didn't make a use of it in an example, but hope this diagram gives a good picture of it. Okay. Think of it as functions. When you pass a variable to a function, it performs some code, runs some code inside it, does some execution, and the function returns some value back. So yeah, input output variables. We talked about the three ways. Now coming to variable data types. A data type is the type of data that the variable can hold. For example, simple examples are numeric or text. A variable can hold multiple data types that I showed in the drop down. We'll be looking at each one of them. So these are the types of data that a variable can hold: a text data type, a number, a boolean or a flag, custom object, list, data table, and we'll be seeing them. Okay, other data types I will show after we finish this. So let's see these data types in action. First one is text. You might have seen it multiple times. Now let's go to our mod 4 flow. Okay, text data type. So we have disabled this. As soon as I have disabled it, it's no longer used. That's why we can't see fname over here. That is what is I mentioned about flow variables. So now let me enable it. It comes back, and that's a text type of data variable. Yesterday I showed you, but since we are in the topic of variables, I'll show it to you again. In Power Automate Desktop, the variable type is determined by the value that you give in it. Let's say you have given a text value over here to fname, and this can be verified by running it. Now let's disable display message because we are going to evaluate the type of fname. I run it from here, and when I double click it, I can see text value as its type. Nowhere I've specified that the value data type of fname should be a text. It has automatically picked up. Likewise, this time I give it a numeric value and rerun it again. Double click it. This time it's a numeric data type value. So we have seen number, text. Let's see boolean. Okay, I'll disable this. Let's take a fresh one. Boolean, as you know, they are flag type of variables which generally hold true false type of values. It's generally used to evaluate a yes no kind of a value. For example, is connected. Okay, I have given it as per naming convention, is connected, and the value is either true or false. But if you give it simply as the way I have mentioned it, it will consider it as a text type of value. So the way to give it is within percent symbols to make it a boolean type of value. I click on save. Is connected is now generated. I run it from here. Okay, true is the value. Can you see now it's shown as boolean value and true. Let's see the other problematic situation that I mentioned. If I don't give the percent symbol, simply give it as a text and I run it. This time it's a text value. Now, once you give it as a boolean value, you can do it for your comparisons. Okay, if the value of this variable is true, if it's false, then you can perform your rest of the whatever actions you will build below this. Now a custom object type of variable. Let's disable here. This time let's do it from a okay. Custom object is it can come from any other application, let's say while interacting with APIs. It might not be a variable that is any of these types: text, number, boolean, list, data table. It could be a custom object, and you'll come to know how. For now, we'll create a custom object explicitly from here. I create a custom object. Let's give it as var cust object. Okay. We are not going to use it externally, so we'll leave it as it is. So here I give it a name and value. It's like a key value pair. I add a value as, let's say, name John, value, let's say 30. Oops. Let's add one more for better understanding. Now there is a JSON editor for custom objects while creating. As soon as I toggle this, you will see the equivalent JSON of what I just added. Okay, so you can, if you have a JSON ready with you, you can put it in the editor and generate the custom object as per the JSON. So for now, I have manually built it. Click on save. Again, click on save. Now you have a custom object here. Now you have built this variable, but how to interact with it? How to get the values, how to read values, write values from it. Now, if I go into the action pane and I can see what do I have for custom objects, I have two actions. One is to convert a JSON to a custom object, other is convert a custom object to JSON. This time we already have a custom object, so let's convert it to a JSON object. As soon as I do this, in a drop down, it gives me all the list of available custom objects in my flow. Right now there is only one, that's why it has selected it as default. And the variable, output variable produced out of this object, this action is a JSON, custom object as JSON. You can give it any name. Okay, for simplicity, let's say I'll put it as output as JSON, the converted JSON provided from the provided custom object. Okay, you can see output as JSON over here. Now just let's run it and see what happens. Okay, it has executed. It has produced the output as JSON over here. So it has converted the custom object, which was looking like a table. I'm sorry, where did I create it? Over here. Yeah, over here. So it took this data, this custom object table, and produced a JSON out of it because of the conversion action that we used. So now let's say some API requires the JSON as an input. Now you can make use of this JSON and pass it over to that API. So we are converting a custom object to JSON. Is this part clear before we move on to the other action, that is the other way around? Okay. Okay. Now I'll not use the same JSON. Let's do a different way, which I want to show you while building flows. What are the ways of help you can take from? Now I am opening the Copilot of the Edge browser, the companion AI companion from Microsoft, Copilot of the Edge browser. Is it open for y'all? Is it visible for y'all? This right hand pane? I think it's loading something. Let's wait for it. You can make either use of Copilot or GPT, Chat GPT also. Okay, now I'm making use of the Copilot feature of the Edge browser. I wanted to wait for this as an input. Okay, as soon as I go at the bottom, so what I want is a JSON. I am asking Copilot or GPT to give me a sample JSON. Provide a, and I want it to be a simple one, not much complications in it. Let's see what it gives. Okay, this is the JSON provided as an example. I copy it. I go back to my flow. Now in a set variable, this is going to be my input JSON. It could come from any external application. Okay, I paste it over here and I save. Now when I say it could come from any application, now in RPA what happens is, let me probably show it in an Excel. Since you guys are from RPA background, it's easy for you to understand, but let me make it a bit easy for non-RPA folks. So let's say you have one desktop flow over here. This is your desktop flow. Your desktop flow is going to interact with n number of applications. It could be a desktop application, it could be a web application, it could be an output coming from an API, it could be let's say a mainframe application. Yeah, RPA tools can interact with many applications. Then it could be a text file, a CSV file. So your bot, once it reads the values from these files, they are going to get it as an input over here inside a variable, and that's why I have been using set variable as an input testing for our flows. You're getting the idea? Let's say you you called an API and that API returned a value, and that value you are stored using a set variable in your desktop flow. That is the one I have used over here. So far, are you with me? Okay. Okay. So this is the input JSON coming from any external application. Now, what are the actions available for interacting with a JSON? You can convert a JSON to a custom object. We are still inside that topic of custom objects, and that's why I'm showing you with the help of a JSON. So convert a JSON to custom object. I will drag it after here. What this will do, it's asked for a JSON. We already have a JSON variable, input JSON, and this will convert JSON as a custom object. Okay, JSON as a custom object is shown up here. Now another way to read the values of variables while testing is, let's say I type here JSON as custom object. You can see all variables are disappeared, only this variable has come on top. Okay, we're going to run this and see what happens. I run it from here and keep a watch on the right hand pane where the variables are there. There the populated value of the converted JSON to custom object should show up. Yeah, now I double click and open. Can you see what happened to that JSON? It gave me a custom object type of variable separated by name, age, email, is student. Again, skills is further divided into multiple skills. Okay, now why did I do this? For ease of accessing. Now it has given me in the form of a key value pair. How am I going to access this? Let's see. The name of the variable is JSON as custom object. Let's display it in a display message box. The name of the variable is JSON as custom object, and we saw, let me pull it up once again for you. We saw what are keys are there. If this is a key, this is a value, what are keys are there? Name, age, email. Let's pull up the name of this particular person. So name of the variable. When that happens, it's a memory issue in pad. You're not able to see. Okay, so JSON as custom object, I've taken it from the variable picker. Inside the percent sign, I use a square bracket. Okay, anyways, I'll paste it and zoom it and show it in a different tool. So as soon as I enter the variable from the variable picker, inside the percent sign, I use a square bracket, and we saw that the name, the key was name. So I need to add that in two single quotes with the correct casing. So the one that I wanted to show you is put it in a notepad, paste it over here, and now zoom it. Now can you see entire name of variable, square brackets, within single quotes, the name of the key from that table. Now let's run, and according to you, what should be the value? This is our JSON. What should be our value when we display it? Correct. Let's run it. Okay, the message box has popped up with the correct value. That's the way to access, and that's why we converted this JSON to a custom object, and then we interacted using its index or the column name, key name. Now you might have seen there is a one inner value also. The skills has got, if you can see the JSON, if you know the JavaScript object notation, it has got again three values inside skills. Now how to interact with such type of values? Okay, so I click on more. The place to look at is this, the name of the variable JSON as custom object. It has already given me what should I use in my square brackets and within single quotes, that is skills, and then I use the indexes. For example, if I want Python, I use the index as 1. So JSON as custom object, skills, and 1. Let's do that. Python, perfect. So what was the notation? How to identify the notation? Go into more. Take this, whatever is mentioned over here, JSON as custom object, square bracket, skills, and the hash column, that is the index column. Now this was for reading the value. Let's say we want to set a value or write a value to that place. Simply take this and use a set variable. Inside the variable, now this time you'll directly paste that. So this time your skills of 1, which was Python, now it will turn to RPA when I run this. So let's do that. Let's give a breakpoint over here and run it from here. Oh no, we want the display message, so let's run it from there. Okay, this time output is RPA and not Python. And you might have, if you want to go ahead and see, you might see that this time we have new values. Python is overwritten by RPA. So this was about writing. We saw reading and writing from a JSON as well as custom object. Let's see what do we have next as a topic. 1 hour is over. We have a list after custom object and data table. Okay, let's quickly do a list and then we can stop over there. Now what I'll do is I'll go into a new subflow and simply give it as a name as lists, so that we have a fresh and clean look. Now as soon as I type list, I get options related to lists. Now what is a list? It's a it's a single column with multiple rows. That's the easiest definition. And to create a list, you can use create new list action. So if I go to Excel, what I'm talking about is, let's say column A, that's a list. It's a single column with multiple rows. Okay. You can have value 1, value 2, value 3. That's it. It's a one dimensional. It's not multiple rows and multiple columns. It's a single column with multiple rows. We'll see it in action once we build a list. Create new list only takes one parameter, that is the name of the list. Save. Our list is created, but because it's not showing up here because we have typed a different name over here. Let me type list and we will get a list over here. Now add items to list. What items we need to add? Let's say we are adding the names of different departments. To which list do I need to add? I pick the variable picker. The list that I want is list. So to this variable, I am adding the value of finance. I do a control C, control V and open it. This time I will give a different department as HR. I have already done a control C. I'll do a control V. This time I will give sales as the department. Now I I cannot use the top run because when I use the top run button, it will by default run from the main flow. But because since we are inside a subflow, I want to test only this part of the feature. So I will right click here and do a run from here. All these things will be important while debugging and testing your flows. Created a flow, as you can see, a list is built. Let me open, and these are the items I have added to the list. So it's a single column with multiple rows. Now let's see how to access the values of a list. In a similar way that we did earlier, we pick the list variable and in square brackets, let's say I want to extract the first value. Now index starts from 0. So we are trying to get the first value. So 0th is finance and first is HR. Flow, right click here and click on run from here. Okay, HR is displayed. So we have read a value from the list. Fine. We can stop over here. Any questions, comments, queries based on the topics we went today? I'll open up the slide. We need to see another type of data type, that is data table. No questions today. Yes, Mayura. Hmm? Okay. Yes, there is a shortcut. Good question. I don't need, this time we are not creating using separate values. So I will disable this. We'll keep the name as same, list. Oh no, we can't use this action anymore because we are going to do it using set variable. Why it has thrown an error? Because we have disabled everything. Let's set a variable and name it as the same one that we have used because we are going to display it. Now the way of doing this is using the, as always, percent symbol, two brackets, single quote. Okay, let's think of some hypothetical example, maybe fruits or days of the week. So Saturday, comma, same thing you need to repeat, Sunday, comma, square brackets within single quotes, Monday. Let's run it out and check it out. The error is still there. Why is there? Because Why is it still there? Syntax error. Okay, there is some syntax error. So what's wrong with this? Okay. This is something to remember. That's why. So only one opening and closing bracket is there. Now the error should go. Yeah, let's run it. It should show list of 1 also as the output, 0 and 1. So the list is created and the output is generated. Now let's open and see. Because of that set variable, it has created a list. So generally only when we know the hard-coded values we use this approach. Otherwise generally we loop through this and keep on dynamically adding the values to the list using add to list. So this is used when you know the values what you need to add. Okay, good question, but hope it clarifies. Okay, it's clear, right, Mayura? Fully clear, right? How to create? Okay, good. Okay. Any other question? Yes, Kirtish, you had something? We will go to Copilot. Give me a JSON of 2 records. I'm intentionally showing you the Copilot way. You might need, yeah, so square bracket is also there. Okay, copy. Let's go here, paste it, save it. Okay, at least no error. So JSON as custom object is our output, and yeah, it has shown in this way. So as I said, you need to then go inside this. You'll get the first record as a table. Yeah, you can see here index of 0. Hello, Kirtish. Hello, am I audible? Okay. So JSON as custom object was okay. This is our variable name into square bracket 0th element. And when I go into this one, it should be our 1th element. And then JSON of this of 1 of age, then you can get it value of the other one. Yeah. You can practice it tomorrow and come back with the correct syntax for me. Okay, okay. Anything else? Okay, okay. Welcome.